Hi, bestie. On Wellness with Hadassah, we're very interested in your all round wellness. We're celebrating the International Day of Older Persons. Things that help these people thrive, understanding human rights for older persons this year. And we also understand that there are particular diseases that are common to older persons. For an example, diabetes. International Diabetes Foundation recorded that over 537 million people worldwide are living with diabetes, and that's 1 in 10 adults. So for every adult, every 10 adults you see, you have one person that is living with diabetes. Amazingly, diabetes is killing a whole lot of people, and it may be out of ignorance of one or two things. We caught up with one of our older persons, a major supporter to our channel, and he gave us exclusive his interview here on the channel. So please do not touch that dial. The only dial you're going to be touching is to share, like, subscribe, and stay tuned as we interview a very special man who survived 21 years with diabetes. Good day, sir. You're welcome to Wellness with Hadassah. It's a privilege to have you in our interview section today. Please, can you just introduce yourself to us?
Thank you. My name's David Nwachukwu Namdi Umano. I was born in 1948 in Amako village, Nanka, Urumba North, local government of Anambra State, Nigeria. Presently, I have five daughters.
Wow.
Who are happily married, four of them. They are all trained, and I have 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
And we are living very happily in the house in Abuja.
Okay. And your wife is still with you?
My
How is she?
wife is still with me, and we are living happily.
Wow. From what you told me, we've lived together for almost 43 years now.
Yes, we have. We got married in 1980.
Wow.
Quite long ago, and then we are still as happy as we were in the past.
Wow. In commemoration of the celebration of International Day with Older Persons, we found it necessary to have, these older persons talk to us. What has it been like? How have they survived? Their resilience? How have they been able to cope with life's challenges? And today we're talking with Engineer David Umano. And I would like to ask you, sir, can you tell me a bit about your experiences living with diabetes for the past, how many years has it been?
Yes, I had diabetes in 2002, the year 2002. And presently, I don't feel I have diabetes because I have so much adapted myself that nobody knows I have diabetes. And I feel quite healthy. And I believe if people know diabetes is not actually a disease anybody should fear.
Wow.
It depends on how you understand it and how you adapt your lifestyle to it.
So at that early stage, because I heard that, I took that note of diabetes is not a disease that anyone should fear. But has this always been your stance? At that early stage, how did it impact your life when you were diagnosed? What was it like?
Okay, at that early stage, in fact, what happened was there was this orange tree in my house that fruited and was very sweet. So, out of ignorance, I used to pluck bundle of it. After eating, I use it as water. And I took so much of it that brought in a lot of sugar into my body, and that was what sparked off my diabetes. Now, that the oranges had by the time I had the diabetes, I was drinking a lot of water. I never knew it was diabetes. My body was emaciated as if I was having AIDS and so on. Then I had to go to hospital. I was referred to hospital, and then the doctor asked me what it was, what was wrong with me. I told him that I used to lick a lot of oranges, sweetened oranges, to the extent that I started um, having a nasty body feeling. And the diabetes, he told me it's diabetes. Since then, it was so bad when I went to test. The measure was so high that the nurse who attended to me was asking whether I was the person that drove myself to the hospital, because it was over 21 millimeter per liter, milligram per liter, when the range is between 4 to 6.4. She told me that those who are up to 15, who measure up to 15, go to coma. So it was a very nasty experience for me, very highly emotional. And I was really displaced. But I was happy that it was not AIDS. It was eventually diagnosed as diabetes B.
Type B. Okay, so I want to ask a little, because you mentioned that it was the excess orange juice you were taking. You said you were even taking it like water.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your family history with diabetes. Because you said you were displayed, you felt like, why diabetes and all. Was there a family history, maybe your parents, siblings that had the same diagnosis before you or after you?
Diabetes actually is not in my family. It isn't in my family. All our aged people didn't have diabetes. It was the first experience I had. Though at a later stage, one of my brothers had diabetes, had the disease.
Wow. So, over time, how has your feeling about, you mentioned that diabetes is nothing to be feared. Was there, based on then and now, that's almost 21 years when you were diagnosed and now, what has changed about how you feel about that diagnosis, about the disease?
Yes, when after the diagnosis, I was informed of the type of diet I need to be taking and the type of life I should be living, and so on and so forth. So I noticed ultimately that adaptation is the key to solving the problems of diabetes. I had to adjust myself. Then started taking discipline, disciplining myself in terms of food intake, in terms of other activities.
So that discipline you mentioned, it must have been hard at that age. 21 years ago, you're currently about 75. So
Huh?
21 years ago, you were 50 something years old.
Mhm.
And some people say that you don't learn a new habit at an old age. What were the challenges and difficulties you faced while managing to adapt?
Um, I think the most important thing in handling diabetes is first to study yourself, know yourself, love yourself in short. Because if you love yourself, you give your body what your body needs physically, and then spiritually, you give your body what it requires, adapting to the laws that guide spirituality. So I had to study. In fact, in diabetes, I don't believe in generalized instruction. Eat this food, don't eat this food, eat that, don't do this, don't do that. By the time you study yourself, you'll be able to design what food that is useful to you, because bodies are different. You'll be able to design what type of food you should take with reference to recommendations given already, because occasionally some of the recommendations may not be suitable to you. But at a stage, I had to study my body. Anytime I take food, I check my body, particularly the back of my hand. It gives me all the signs of what reactions I'm having within me about diabetes.
How did you discover that?
You just by studying yourself.
Wow.
It's a typical this thing, taking seriously knowledge of yourself. If I eat any type of food, I check the back of my palm and see the reaction it gives to know whether it is adequate or not adequate. That's how I have designed all the food I started eating since I had diabetes.
So,
And
including
then,
the ingredients in the food, you check what was added, what was removed. How do you?
yes, um, for instance, there are certain ingredients that are added into the food that distort your skin.
Interesting.
I notice it myself. When you take oily food, you take note of it.
Okay.
And that in that case, you instruct you
Whoever
tell
is
your wife and the people cooking for you to adjust, and so on. So studying and knowing yourself is important. And then again, diabetes requires serious discipline. And if you are fortunate enough to have means of providing the food you eat, you require to really correct yourself. You need to be disciplined to take what quantity that is adequate for you at what time and how. And when you do acclimatize to the food that is good for you, you see that your body will naturally come back. For instance, you base when I base my food on vegetables, the quantity of vegetable is much and it's readily available. That is what a diabetic should be able to know.
Okay.
Incidentally, food needed by the diabetics are common food you get in the farm. You can grow by yourself and you can get all around. In fact, the most important thing is to be at par with the nature, with your surroundings. Because God has made it such that it makes provision for any group of people who are in their environment. The type of food that suits their body. It is not ideal to go for processed food more than natural food. And when you are able to discover these, you know that you keep going, your body will come back normal. That is the secret behind it all. And then do not follow the crowd. When you go to functions, eat only what you know is adequate for you. Do not drink because others are drinking in order to show that you are still part of it. Be yourself. There are a number of people who have passed on because of the disease, diabetes, who give the feeling that, oh, let me take whatever I want. After all, everybody will die. Yes, everybody will die, but die at the appropriate time. You may die of diabetes or other diseases, but allow nature to take you. So my advice is you don't follow the crowd, particularly as young boys and people are concerned. They do because other people do. That means you don't even love yourself, because if you love yourself, you'll be able to give your body what your body requires at any time.